Okay, hey, welcome to the off ramp. I'm your host, Thomas Jason Anderson. It's the holiday season, so hey, happy holidays to everybody. I hope everyone has a blessed and warm holiday. I hope everybody has a chance to spend some time with family and thank you for joining. I hope I'm not interrupting your groove right now. I know some people are back at work, but it's still holiday season time, and it's a time, it's a chance for all of us to maybe look back on the past year, look at, reevaluate some things, sort of give ourselves maybe a little bit of grace, not be so hard on ourselves, not be so hard on those that are around us who are there to support us and love us, and maybe just take some time to appreciate, and that's what we're doing right now. So I appreciate you guys joining, and this is a special time for all of us, and I hope even for those who feel that it's not that special, it is a special time, and it's a special time now if you're joining. So hey, blessed holidays to all of you. There's something in the news right now, and it's something close to what I do. It's something that I've been looking at for over 15 years, and I haven't been talking about it. I haven't been writing about it because it's something that I've done for so long. It's not new to me, but it seems to be new to everyone else. Okay, and it's if you go online, you could see, especially on the platform X, but everywhere else, there's a huge push right now in the social media space uh, concerning entitlement fraud in Minnesota, entitlement fraud in California, and the entitlement fraud issue in Minnesota, it looks really bad. You've got Medicaid fraud, and a lot of it is pointed at the Somali population. And, you know, it, you can see how there's an argument being made overall that Minnesota is unique, that there's entitlement fraud going on there that isn't like anywhere else in the country. And it's because of these outsiders type of a thing. That's where the storyline is going. And it's going that way for a reason. Okay. And so it's the holiday season, and the good thing is you guys are here on the off ramp. So let's get off of the highway that everyone's on right now. And this highway is it's stuck. No one's going anywhere on this. People think they're getting somewhere on this entitlement fraud thing, and they think that they're making some headway, but they're not. Let's get on the off ramp. Let's take a look at what's going on here, and let's evaluate what we're really looking at. And what we're really looking at when we're talking about entitlement fraud is a nationwide system of fraud that has been in place now for generations. It's nothing new. Uh, what the general public and what everyone who isn't right now watching the off ramp politics right now. What the general public, most of the general public, and even the media, and even elected officials do not know and do not understand about entitlement fraud is that uh, a while back we pretty much privatized the entitlement system, a lot of it. Okay, and what do I mean by that? What happens is when the welfare money, Medicaid money, or any of the entitlement money comes out of Washington, D.C., it goes down into individual states, into their state capitals. And from there, that money then gets spread out through all of the different counties or parishes within a state. And so you can take a state like Florida, for example, education dollars might come in through something called Title One that the federal government funds. And Title One money is supposed to be for failing schools in areas where the communities are poor and the property tax base isn't large enough to support everything that the schools in that area need. And so the federal government brings in federal dollars to help supplement. So these dollars that come in to these schools and throughout the state of Florida that are struggling, they're not for paying for teachers. They're not for staff. What they're for is for bringing in additional staff, additional computers, laptops, basically giving the students in schools that are suffering extra benefits on top of what they're already supposed to be getting baseline from the school district. So it's not replacing the basic money that is coming into the schools. It's actually a supplement. And so when you look at that program like that, DC sends the money to Tallahassee, and then Tallahassee sends it out throughout the school districts throughout the state. Well, when that happens, this is entitlement. When that happens, there are all types of little funky things that go on to make it so that instead of the money going to the schools that need it, the money goes to schools that do not need it. Okay. And we're talking billions of dollars just in Title One money in the state of Florida alone. So that's an example of what I'm saying is that I've been looking at this for 15 years. I have seen it up and close and personal, and I know that it's a system, and I know that the system has been in place for so long that the corruption isn't even viewed as corruption anymore. It's viewed as like normal operating procedure. And so when someone's coming along and they're saying, "Hey, there's something different about Minnesota," there's nothing different about Minnesota. There's nothing different about Minnesota. It's just like every state in the union. All 50 states, as a matter of fact, some of the worst states when it comes to entitlement fraud are the southern states. And so this isn't about. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying one group is worse than the other. What I'm saying is currently on the political highway of discourse in our country, we are having a distinction being made. There isn't distinction. There are some people saying that the Democrats are worse than the Republicans, and some people are saying the Republicans are worse than Democrats, but this isn't a party thing. See, the waste, fraud, and abuse in entitlement programs has been across the board. And most of it goes into the hands of local contractors and individuals and people that we all see as regular business people. Okay. And it's happened for so long that no one today is viewing the money they're receiving through these different programs as fraud. And I'll give you, another example. In Mississippi, you had a guy, a former NFL quarterback named Brett Favre, involved in a welfare fraud scandal where he was accused of somehow, some way being able to get welfare money and pipeline it into his daughter's school so that her university said they could build some new volleyball courts or something and some other stuff, supposedly. And that involved the governor of the state. It involved a lot of powerful people. And it really didn't make that much news. People really did. As a matter of fact, because they were Republicans and in Mississippi, a lot of that was defended by people in the media. You can look on the right. There were platforms out there that were wholeheartedly defending Brett Favre to this day. And those same platforms who defend Brett Favre are the ones going crazy over entitlement fraud in Minnesota. So I'm just pointing this out to show you that entitlement fraud is not something that you find in one party or the other, Democrat or Republican. It's not more with the Democrats or less with the Republicans. It's not like that. It's literally a system, and it's been in place for so long that the corruption isn't even viewed that way anymore. And so, what are we seeing right now? Why is this popping up all of a sudden? And I'll tell you what's happening. It's the end of America as we know it, is what's happening. Okay. This is one of the first signs that I now can say, well, you know what? We're in big trouble, that we're going down a road where this is going to end in us not being maybe a country. Okay. Because this touching on entitlement fraud, what they're doing is they're playing with a political nuclear football. It's one of those things where it's assured self-destruction on both sides, like mutual destruction. Both sides will be totally and thoroughly destroyed from the bottom up. Okay? That's how bad entitlement fraud is, but that's how systemic it is, and that's how far it's gotten down into the system and how deep rooted it is. We're in a situation now where one side has decided because the other side weaponized certain systems. And so let me backtrack a little. We're in a situation now where the Republican Party is very angry over what the Democrats did under Biden. They're very upset over the fact that the Democrats used a political strategy involving Congress and the court system to go after Donald Trump and his family. And they're upset because none of it worked. So it looks like, from anybody from the outside, it looks like, well, it was some type of political rig job. It wasn't, none of it was real, right? And so that started us down this road now where the Republicans feel, after what the Democrats did under Biden, now they feel like it's their opportunity for payback. Is how they see it. And they're looking at the entitlement fraud as the perfect way to do it, because Look at who they're pointing to. It's Minnesota. It's a state that really, out of all of our states, it kind of stands out. It's a little bit like Alaska, a little bit like Hawaii. It's not really, yeah, there's a lot of Democrats, but it's a weird state. It's a very independent state, streaky state. And so with a high population of foreigners in certain areas. And so this is one of those things from the Republican perspective. They're thinking, well, what we can do is we can pick on Minnesota because they're that outside of the norm and it'll stop there. That's why you're looking at Minnesota. And why would they want to do that? Why are the Republicans trying to be picky? Because the Republicans know, right, that by pointing out Minnesota, what comes next when the Democrats get into power is they're going to point out Mississippi and they're going to point out Alabama and the Democrats are going to point out West Virginia and they're going to point out South Carolina and they're going to point out Georgia and Louisiana. You get the picture? Arkansas, the mother lode, Texas. All right. So we're in a situation now where the Republicans decided, hey, we're going to go play with the nuclear football. We're going to go after this uh, entitlement fraud, and we're going to do it by blaming it all on Democrats. And don't worry, it can't blow back on us because it's Minnesota. No, doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. Was what the Republicans are hiding right now and pointing out everything with Minnesota is their entitlement fraud in their states is way worse than anything you find in Democrat states. Way worse. The Brett Favre welfare money going for college volleyball courts, that's just scratching the surface. And those guys don't even realize they still look at that Brett Favre situation like nothing wrong happened. See, from their perspective on the Republican side, they don't think there's any fraud in Louisiana or Alabama or Georgia. That's how delusional they are. That's why they feel confident in doing this attack on the Democrats. But what they don't realize is their delusion is going to blow up in their face. Because when people discover what kind of fraud has been occurring in these Southern Republican run states, how sick and disgusting it is in those states, when that gets exposed, whatever you see happening in Minnesota is going to look like little kindergarten games compared to what's going on in the South, right? So why would the Republicans go this route? Why would they decide, hey, you know what? Let's play with the nuclear political football. Let's go and play with this game right here with these entitlement frauds. And we're going to make it seem like it's only Democrats. And don't worry, no one will ever figure out that we're the worst ones. Why would they go that route? I believe it's desperation. I believe what we're looking at are the final like death throes of our political parties in America, the Democrat and Republican Party. These guys are ending. And we're seeing that collapse right now. That's what this attack on Minnesota is and on the Democrats in California. That's what we're watching is we're watching the collapse of both of our parties. And the reason why is because the entitlement fraud is that bad in both that now that the Republicans have let the genie out of the bottle on this, it's not going back in. Now this is going to spread. Now people are going to find out the things that I know, the things that even the Republicans know, that they are worse than the Democrats when it comes to entitlement fraud. They're worse. Okay. And the other part is that their states can't operate without the fraud. They just can't. There are southern states right now that will fall apart if you take the fraud out of the equation. That's how important the fraud is in these states, right? So, like I say, I'm not trying to say this guy's bad or that guy's bad. What I'm saying is they're both bad. Democrats are horrible on entitlement fraud, but the Republicans are just as bad, if not worse, when it comes to the South. But overall, they're the same. There's no difference. There's no difference between the two. And so that's where we have to get on the off ramp here and realize, well, wait a minute, guys, what's really at the root of the problem here? What so we can't keep going with this amount of fraud. That we know this, right? It's impossible. We also know by attacking, by trying to throw people in jail on this, that what it's going to trigger is a political nuclear war between the parties, and it's going to collapse both. They won't be able to survive this fight. If they stay in this zone and fight each other here, both parties will collapse because there's just too many. There's union guys, there's corporate things. It's too much. They can't they can't fight this war and come out in one piece either side. So how do you fix it? How do you tackle this? Well, the way you tackle it is you have to change the actual system. That's the problem. And that's why I made this platform because people need to understand that we're living under a system of fraud. And entitlement fraud is just one component of the overall fraud system that we're underneath right now. Right. So instead of trying to fight within this fake scenario of the Democrats are really bad on this, but the Republicans are. No, no. Instead of doing that back and forth arguing who's worse, the Republican or Democrat, what we need to focus in on is, well, what is the system that creates both Republicans and Democrats? What system allows Brett Favre to get caught up in this fraud stuff? And at the same time, Somali immigrants in Minnesota. What connects the two? What connects Brett Favre to Somali immigrants? What's that connector? Because they're the same. They're both involved in ridiculous entitlement fraud. The type of it's embarrassing entitlement fraud, right? So what kind of system puts Brett Favre, the former NFL quarterback, in the same bucket as Somali immigrants committing entitlement fraud in Minnesota? What system does that? Because if you think about it, that's a crazy system that can put those types of people together in the same bucket, and that's what we've got. Well, I'll tell you what type of system it is. It's the privatization of the entitlement system. See, for years, the Republicans have been saying, we want to privatize Social Security. We want to privatize Medicare and Medicaid. They want to privatize, privatize, privatize. That's what they've been saying for decades because they think the answer to entitlement issues are make it all private. Let private institutes, private nonprofits, private corporations, private individuals run this stuff. Don't let the government do it. They've been claiming that that's what they want to do and that's their answer. But the thing is that we're living their answer. See, no one ever announced to any of us that, guess what, guys? They privatized the entitlement programs. No one ever announced it, but it happened. It was a long stretch, a long arc of time. But over a long period of time, the Republicans were successful, especially in the South, in privatizing the entitlement system. That's what they've done. And so what you if you follow the money, what you'll see is that the money goes from the federal government to the state. And then from the state, it goes to these private nonprofits, private companies, private individuals. And when it goes to these private entities, that's when the money disappears. Okay, so I'll give you the perfect example of what I'm saying. This is how long I've been working on this. I'll show you guys a story that I worked on back in 2012 that involved entitlement fraud. And when I helped the New York Post with this was an exclusive that I gave them, my research. When I helped them do the story, it led to this person being prosecuted. This was a lot of money. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by how they privatize public dollars. Okay. So let's split screen this. And as you can see here, right, this is the title here, 600,000 healthcare clinic in a vegetative state, right? So this is a story by, of course, my co-author of Gold Bar Bomb, Isabel Vincent. But yeah, so this was, and you can see it's dusty, unheated, and has no visible staff or patients. But this health clinic in Queens has raked in more than a half a million in taxpayer cash. The clinic is run by a Nigerian-born doctor whose political connections not only resulted in a steady stream of government money, almost 600,000 in total, but had two lawmakers writing a bill to get her off the hook for 300,000 and $368 in unpaid property taxes. Dr. Dorothy Ogundu says she created her Angel Docs charity to improve access to health care for the poor. But the former church she turned into the Akai Life Health Center on Hillside Avenue in Holliswood was locked up tight on two visits by the Post last week. Its front door, where the business hours were listed as 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. 6 days a week, was chained shut with a padlock. So this was, like I said before, this is April 1st, 2012, April Fool's Day, 2012. Okay. And so this is how long looking at uh I've been looking at this and working on this in the media space. I can give you many, many, many more examples. What we're seeing now, though, in the all out attack on Minnesota and on Democrats and on California, what we're seeing, that is a totally different approach to what we've seen in the past. Like I said, I've been doing this work forever, and every time I pointed it out, the media will cover it, but not really that much. They wouldn't go with an all-out assault and say, "Hey, man, we need that Nigerian doctor that did that. That means all Nigerian doctors are bad. Let's go after them all," type of a thing. That never happened, right? We're at a place now where people are getting hysterical and they're pretending as if there's only fraud in Minnesota, basically, or with Democrats only. They're not realizing that no, 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 no. This is just a tip of the iceberg. The fraud here, it's trillions of dollars ultimately. And the way that it's done, the way that it happens through the system, it doesn't even look fraudulent. It doesn't even look illegal, even though it is. So we're in a really bad spot. And so, like I showed you, that one case I worked on in 2012, it showed that, hey, these government officials get federal dollars down into the hands of private charities and private businesses and private companies. And this is all entitlement money. And when it gets there, it disappears, like in that 2012 story I worked on, right? So that's really the problem, right? The problem is we have followed the playbook of the Republicans and of the free market capitalist guys, and we've brought the free market into the government entitlement business, and that is what's created all the fraud. That's what's done it. I'm sorry. That's what's done it, and I'm not being anti-capitalist. What I'm saying is I don't think you can mix the 2. I don't think it's a good idea to try to take social programs and mix them with people who want to make money, because what they end up doing is they end up cutting corners, changing rules just slightly, little by little, but over time, those slight little rules changes end up turning into breaking the law, right? That's what's happening. And so what we've had over decades now are for-profit entities or private entities trying to change the rules that they live by when it comes to taking in this government money for entitlements. And they just change them slightly here and there on the edges so they can pocket a little bit of money here and there. But as the months go by and the years go by and they continue to chip away, you end up in a situation where all of the money becomes theirs in their pocket. But they did it in a way where they slowly changed the little rules little by little to where really it's not looked at as fraud now. That's the situation we're in. And so what we have to do is pull the rug out from under there. The privatization of entitlement money has to radically change. I'm not against privatizing it in terms of having it totally private. What I'm against is this public private partnership type of thing where it's, the private, business or the private entity doing the job of the government. Nah, nah, nah. I don't think the 2 can mix. I think either the private entities are gonna do it or the government's gonna do it. And here's the reason why, because if the private entities are gonna do it, then the government comes in to act as the watchdog. It comes in as the entity that tells everybody in that private zone, "Here are the rules of the road, and this is how we will enforce them and enforce them fairly and evenly," right? That's fine. But when you start mixing the public and private, where it's not just the government giving the rules of the road, it's the government getting involved with the money making. It's elected officials getting involved with people on the local level, getting the money so that that money can turn around and get into their campaign coffers. That's when things get bad. That's when things go wrong. And the thing is neither party wants to touch that because both sides want to continue to play games with this entitlement money. Both sides want to continue to plug into their little special groups and private organizations and private businesses that back them politically, right? They want to feed them this money because it turns into a patronage system. And Gold Bar Bob, we write about it a lot. That's how Senator Bob Menendez came up into New Jersey politics, this patronage system, where the government money was shifted to the private sector through all types of ways, some of them nefarious, right? And so everybody who was there where Bob Menendez came up in Union City, everyone, even the janitor, that was a politically placed job. You had to be connected to be the janitor. That's just the way it was. Right? And so that's what these systems that's what attacking Minnesota is getting at the heart of. It's going to end up getting at attacking all of these systems that all of these members of Congress have come up through, these systems of patronage. And so this is the collapse of our system because that's what we were living under is a patronage type system. What I worry about is as this thing collapses, there's nothing there to replace it. And so that's why I'm here with Off Ramp because I'm trying to give ideas to replace. And one of those ideas is the reparations fund that I've been talking about, right? The way I see that is instead of having a government, private mix on these entitlements, why not just take the entitlements away from the government and give it to a fund, a sovereign wealth fund that is there as a reparations fund. It's 100% privately backed through tax-free bond money. The investments of that thing goes into the education of of descendants of slaves, their educations, into their businesses, business loans, disability. But it's basically taking entitlements out of the hands of the government and putting it directly into the hands of the people through something like a sovereign wealth fund that is under our control, which we then set the rules of the road and we then enforce as a community. And all this can be done through the Fed or the Department of Treasury, all of it 100% regulated highly by the government at that level. But that's the role of the government, I believe, is to regulate, is to set the rules of the road, set the parameters, make sure no one is stepping out of line and breaking the law, but allow us, the people, to have some empowerment. Allow us to be able to, instead of having to rely upon the Brett Favres of the world or some connected person politically, allow us to already have a connection through our own fund. And hey, who's to say there can't be an American Heritage Fund where people who are descendants of people who were, founders of this nation put together a fund and they bring in private financing as well. And they do things in their communities that run the entitlement programs instead of the government. So that's my idea. And you can go back into some of the stuff that I've written. You can look at some of my videos. There's a bigger explanation, more thorough explanation on my idea on this. But that's what we need is we need a total replacement of the system because the system we have now is totally wore out. It's corrupt. It doesn't even work for what's going on in the modern world today. We need something totally new. That's my idea as a reparations fund. I can go on and on about that thing, but that's how I see it. And I see what's happening now with this Minnesota entitlement fraud and then California. I see that as the beginning of the end of this entire political system. It's going to bring both parties down. They don't even know it. I don't even think they know it. I see it because I've been in up underneath this thing, digging around. I've seen so much. There's so much fraud in there, and it's so deep. And most of it, people don't even know that it's fraud. That's what's scary about it. That's how deep seated it is. That's how entrenched that it is. So that's why the whole system has to be trashed. We need something new. What they're doing now is they're trashing it, but they're not coming up with something new. I think what's going to happen is they're going to build a vacuum here and it's going to be filled by more graft and more corruption. It's not going to change. So the system has to change. Anyway, guys, all right. So have a great day. I just wanted to hit you up on that. Want you guys to just get on the off ramp on this entitlement fraud debate. It's not about Democrat or Republican. It's not about pointing fingers. It's not saying who's at fault. I'm telling you, Most of the people who are at fault, a lot of them aren't even alive right now. This is about a system and us having a conversation about how do we replace this system that clearly doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's what off ramp politics is all about. Hey, I'm your host, Thomas Jason Anderson. Hey, have a blessed holiday. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Please, share it. If you have any comments, hit me up. I'm here. But I really appreciate it, guys. Have a great day. Love you all.